Mathieu Turcotte joins the OHL podcast this week. And I know what you're wondering. What's a coach from the Q got to do with the OHL podcast? Well, this guy's also got deep Hockey Canada experience and some players that you enjoy in our league today. He has coached himself. So first and foremost, Mathieu, thank you very much for joining the show.
Thanks for the invite, Mike. My pleasure.
Yeah, happy to talk to you and get this perspective from you, because one of the things that jumps out at me, so you're coaching a team in the Q, and then you get 3 different opportunities in very short succession: U17, U18, and the Hlinka tournament to coach. That's a whole bunch of different players in a short amount of time. So I know that coaching these days, it's all about communication. It's all about relationship building. How do you do that in such a condensed time period with different players?
That's a great question. First of all, I think that's the biggest thing, whether it's a short-term event or it's throughout a whole season. It's building those relationships with the guys. As soon as camp started, I took a lot of time with each and every player in July at the U17s. Let's say if we go back to that one, just to get to know the guys, their nicknames, their strengths, who their favorite players are, where they like to play in certain situations, whether it's power play, PK, just to kind of touch base with them. And then throughout that week at camp, obviously not everybody made the team, but a big group of guys obviously came with us in November. And then November, it's trying to get kind of hit the ground running. Since obviously you don't have much time. The U17s are going on right now. So about a year ago we were going at it, and you don't have much time, but it's showing the guys that, yeah, we're their coach, but it's also a dream for us to coach for Hockey Canada as well, right? So there's a lot of common areas. So it's their dream to play. It's our dream to coach for Hockey Canada. So a lot of those conversations, and then just kind of connecting with them off the ice as well, and in certain moments that may seem pretty simple, but whether it's meals or certain activities, you just want to connect with everybody and get to know the players as much as possible.
In your time coaching, Mathieu, have you seen players change? And I don't just mean physically, but in the way that you relate to them, or you have to relate to them to get the most out of them.
Huge change. So when I started in 2010, I'd say it was more of like the old school way of doing things for most head coaches. I was an assistant, so I was just breaking into the queue up in Val d'Or, and so I studied a coaching program at Laval University. It has a big football program there now, but so I studied there, and we had some teaching classes as well, right? So how to connect with the up and coming, like the new wave of students or athletes. So I kind of learned one way and then saw the other way when I started in the queue. But you knew that at some point it was going to get to where it is today. So there's definitely a big difference. Especially for me, like I'm 6'4", 220. When I walk into a room, there's like a certain, um, you know, I'm not intimidating, but I just have to let the guys know that I'm a normal person, that I'm not just like some cyborg behind a computer just tapping on my keys and watching video, right? So I like to connect with the guys, whether it's during meals or just everyday stuff. Just talk about yesterday's highlights, or talk about just the way their school's going or their billets going. So there's all these connections I feel that now you have to make, and that's a good thing, right? Like we coach because we want to help these players get to the next level, but at the same time we're kind of building the next generation citizens as well, right? So there's a lot of things that we relate to as coaches. Like I love to post articles up on the board of, just certain people going through adversity, whether it's in the business world or in the hockey world, and how that can relate to us and how that can relate to basically everybody. And I just try to bring a different perspective as well. You want to win some hockey games, but the guys got to know that you care about them as people first, and not just players.
What led you into coaching originally?
So I wasn't good enough to make it as a player, so I figured that out pretty young, which kind of helped me start coaching. So I started coaching at 17. Actually, I was actually heading into a law degree to potentially be an agent because I wanted to stay in the game. And then one of my former coaches asked me to coach with him as an assistant, and I just got the bug right away. And I said, I'm taking a bit of a leap of faith. Screw the whole lawyer thing. I'll try out this coaching thing because we have one life to live, and then kind of work my way up from there.
Is there something about pursuing a law degree and connections to coaching? Because you're not the first. I worked with a guy on my broadcasts the last few years. Law at U Windsor ends up coaching. Pete DeBoer,
Really,
who coached in Kitchener for a long time, and I was covering teams while he was here. Law degree, now a coach. I mean, I don't
I
know. It
didn't know
just
that.
maybe it just is coincidence, but it seems to be a pretty regular route here.
That is pretty funny. And then there's John Cooper, obviously, that's
Great
pretty
example.
famous for it as
Sure.
well, right? So, yeah, I don't know if there's something to that. I think maybe some type of analytical mind, maybe that goes into it as well. Um, that's just that's just the way I am, at least. I like to analyze a lot of things and try to collect the most information possible, and then go ahead with it all. But that's interesting. I didn't know that about Pete DeBoer as well.
Something you said earlier, Matthew, about meeting with these players when you open camp at the U17, where you won gold, by the way, but you're talking to them, getting to know them a little bit better as players. You mentioned power play. So these players will come to your U17 camp as the best and the brightest from their teams back home, and they're probably used to power play time or first line minutes, whatever that looks like. I've always been of the philosophy, and I'm not a coach, but when I watch these international tournaments, I'm like, just put the best players out there because they're the best, and they'll figure out how to do whatever you want them to do. But how do you balance that with guys that are used to power play time? You've only got 5 spots, and you're like, you're not going to be on our number one PP.
Well, first of all, especially at the national level, I think that the biggest thing is trying to create competition between unit one and two because they're basically both number one units. And you've got some guys that are kind of on the fringe of both those units that can hop in. So in practice, we have a few extras that we kind of keep around and switch in and out and we test things. So obviously the U17, you only have 2 games before you get to the quarters or semis. U18s, I was running the power play down in Dallas. So we had a bit more time because you have more round robin games with the IIHF tournaments. So there's a lot of testing and working with certain guys and moving around certain pieces. But as you said, everybody's used to that's U17 is probably the first time that most guys won't be on the power play in their young careers, right? So there is a bit of a sell job to that as well, and giving them opportunities on the penalty kill if they're not playing on the power play, and just keeping a certain competitiveness going as well, in the sense that it's not because somebody's there game one or game two that they'll definitely be there in game three, right? So we expect a certain amount of success on that, a certain amount of execution. And that's something that's important. My power play is pretty much my strength, I'd say, even as a head coach in Blainville when I was there the last 2 years. So I was in charge of the first power play unit, and I kind of gave the second unit, if you will, to one of our assistant coaches. So I worked with Ryan McDonald, who was our assistant coach at U17s on the power play. He's now the head coach of one of the U17 teams, and also ran it at U18. So I've got a bit of experience doing that, and to me, creating that competition amongst the units, especially at the national level, is definitely the way to go.
We talk all the time about players getting the opportunity to put on that jersey with the maple leaf on the front and what it means to them. But even as a coach, Matthew, when you get that tap on the shoulder from Hockey Canada, what does that mean to you?
Honestly, it was one of my dreams growing up, coaching at 17. Most guys are playing at 17, but I stopped, like I said. So at 17, I was already thinking about coaching a national team. My goal has always been to coach the World Juniors. So to have the opportunity to get the U17 head job last year, and then to win the gold medal, and to get the call once we were eliminated in the Q playoffs to go as an assistant as well. U18s was obviously great, and we ended up winning gold there. And then to get the Hlinka job was quite the honor. Obviously, it didn't end the way we wanted, losing in a shootout to the States there that went on to win. But definitely an honor and a privilege to get that call.
You mentioned coaching in Blainville. You're in the queue for about a decade coaching, and I know of late you've been through the O. I don't know if you've been to the Dub yet, but you're consuming all of this hockey. Do you notice differences in the style of play, Matthew, from one league to the next?
I do actually. So I've watched a lot of OHL and Q this year. I follow the Dub, but I haven't watched as many games. Um, I think that the game in the OHL isn't as wide open as certain teams play in the Q. Um, I think that it used to be the majority of teams in the queue that were kind of run and gun and playing wide open. I think it's kind of less and less now. But OHL, there's definitely a big difference in that sense. I feel that there there's a bit more of the pro game going on, which is probably better in the way I see things, in the sense that we want to prepare the guys for the next level. So um, it's not a question of just getting points. As a player, you want to be well rounded and be able to play a 200-foot game. They all have their strengths, but there's still that teaching that we need to do as coaches. So I think that's pretty much the biggest difference. I think that there's probably an extra line of players, at least two players per team that are a little more high end. I don't know if it's a population thing, but that's one of the differences I saw. And the biggest thing for me was just the fans in the building, especially in Kitchener. So I went to Kitchener. I saw a few other games as well, and Brantford was one of those games. Just the atmosphere in the games. I feel that you probably get 20% of that atmosphere in certain Q rinks, whether it's Quebec City, Moncton, um, Sherbrooke in the playoffs, like a few spots like that. But most of the teams aren't getting as many fans. So I think it kind of changes the way that it helps the players develop, in the sense that OHL, when you're playing against not necessarily against, but with a ton of fans in the building, and just that atmosphere, that pressure, I feel that kind of helps you get to that next level as well, and you kind of learn a little younger certain things.
That team in Brantford, a bit of a wagon, eh?
It is. So the game I was there was the first game that O'Brien was back, and that line of Ben Ack, Van Acker, and O'Brien was pretty deadly. And then Caleb Malhotra, I think he had a hat trick that game as well. So they're definitely up there in terms of best teams in the country. That's for sure.
No question about that. My friends in the Dub and in the queue like to give me a hard time whenever I'm foolish enough to complain about the travel in the Ontario Hockey League. And look, from Kitchener, everything's pretty damn central, so I've got nothing to complain about. But as a guy that did it in the queue for as many years as you did, any war stories from the road and some particularly edge of your seat trips?
Um, I mean, there's always crazy stories every year. There's always so Chicoutimi to Val d'Or. So I started in Val d'Or, and then I went to Chicoutimi after. And if you kind of go down south through Montreal, it's a little longer, but you get normal roads. If you go up top, you're basically in the woods for 8 to 9 hours without any cell reception. And there's one year where we got stuck, and the heating didn't work either. So they had to delay the game, and everything was a little hectic there for about 4 or 5 hours. But we figured it out. But yeah, a lot of stories like that. But ideally, our our bus drivers have been great throughout the years, whether it's Val d'Or, Chicoutimi, Drummondville, or Blainville. These guys are troopers, and they find a way. But yeah, definitely some big storms that I've been in, especially when you travel around Val d'Or and Rouyn-Noranda, or you go up to Baie-Comeau. It gets pretty hectic sometimes.
I am never going to complain again, Matthew. I swear I am never going to complain again. We are in conversation today with Mathieu Turcotte, a coaching free agent, and we've got him between leagues and actually between continents right now as he watches a ton of hockey and studies the game. And speaking of that, he has watched players that we know very well in the Ontario Hockey League, and he's got a different perspective on those players from the OHL because he was behind the bench when they were playing for one of his Team Canada teams. We'll get into those players and Matthew's perspectives on them as we continue the interview edition of the OHL podcast. Hockey is back, and this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, brings you all the speed, skill, and nonstop action you love. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NHL, and it brings it right to your fingertips. From player props to the thrill of live in-game betting, and every drop of the puck is your shot to win big. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. If there's a sports betting product you need, the DraftKings Sportsbook app is the one. Light the lamp all season long with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. The holidays are here, and that means it's the most wonderful time of the year to save with Rakuten. Use Rakuten to stack cash back at your favorite stores on top of holiday sales. And by favorite stores, I mean Adidas, Sporting Life, Expedia. That's savings on savings. With Rakuten, you can get cash back on gifts for everyone on your list. From toys for the kids to kitchen gear for the person who loves to cook, to electronics for everyone. Did I mention Best Buy as well? You can even save on something for yourself. Just shop the stores you love, and cashback is automatically added to your account. And you can choose to get paid via Interac, e-transfer, PayPal, or check. Join for free today and get a new member bonus after minimum qualifying purchases. Just go to Rakuten.ca, download the app, or install the browser extension. That's RAKUTEN. Terms and conditions apply. Continuing our conversation today with Mathieu Turcotte, a coach who has spent about a decade in the Q and also in Hockey Canada's program at the U17s, U18s, and the Hlinka tourney, where he's won, by the way, 2 golds and a bronze. Mathieu, let's talk about some of these players that you've had firsthand experience with, and I'm going to lump 2 of them together with the Sarnia Sting. Fans in Sarnia are getting a little impatient as we start this season. The Sting aren't doing as well as many would have hoped, but they've got 2 young studs on this team in Beckham Edwards and Alessandro Di Iorio. I know you had them both. What did you see from these guys?
Yeah, I love coaching Eddie and Dio. I think those 2 guys are amazing players, first of all, but to me the most important thing are their team players as well, which is even more important and seems a little simple in terms of my analysis, but those are the types of guys you win with in the long run. So yeah, I had Eddie at U17s. Dio was on the other side. We played in the finals, but was able to work with both at U18s, especially in that camp leading up. And then Dio stayed with us the whole time, played some games, and Eddie left during the tournament because we had a lot of guys come in with the CHL playoff eliminations, and then obviously just had both at the Hlinka. So to me, they're a little similar in the sense that to me they're extremely responsible defensively. Like I said, they're concentrated on team first, but I saw that Eddie was basically about a point a game right now. Dio's injured. I'm sure that once he starts playing, he'll get going. But 2 really responsible guys that are able to play 200 feet, play extremely well without the puck also. And to me, they'll be leaders in Sarnia for a few years here. I think that they're 2 studs, and they can play in the middle as well, which is obviously important as centermen, one lefty, one righty. So definitely some options there for the coaching staff.
It just makes me think of we were talking earlier about you as a coach and building relationships and communicating with these players. You're seeing so many of them over a short period of time, but these players are coming from, a home base hockey club that does things one way, and they have to come into, your U17, your U18, your Hlinka team, and do things perhaps another way. And I guess that probably speaks to the hockey IQ that we talk about a lot. And those players that have the higher hockey IQ will adapt more quickly.
Exactly. These guys are good. Like these obviously we're the best country in the world in terms of hockey, and these are the best players, best 16, 17 or 18-year olds or 19 when you go to the World Juniors that in the world. So these guys can adapt to anything. I think the biggest thing, at least for myself and the coaching staffs, with all the changes, it's just trying to keep things simple. So you're keeping things simple in terms of strategy, but you're concentrating on those daily habits that'll give you success. So those little habits, and obviously special teams, but just having that Canadian attitude and playing the Canadian way and keeping those habits great while keeping certain systems simple, I think kind of speeds the guys up in terms of learning everything fast and also playing fast, which is what I like to bring to every team I get to.
Gavin Betts has been a really nice story for the Kingston Frontenacs in the OHL so far this year, and I know you got to see him up close and personal as well. What did you see from Betsy?
Well, I'm not surprised you tell me that, Mike. Kind of saw that one coming. So Betsy, at U17s, we he had a pretty good camp, but he didn't necessarily dominate. So we were eager to see how he would play at the tournament. Um, he had a relatively slow start, at least to his standards. But that gold medal game against Canada Red, if it wasn't for Gavin, we would not have won that. He just made some timely saves. And to me, the level of preparation he has, and obviously we had him at Hlinka as well, and he kind of won that starting spot too. His level of preparation, at least for that age, I had never seen before. He just takes things so seriously, is so professional in his approach. So to me, I'm not surprised that he's having success, and I'm sure he'll continue to have success. He always seems to find that next level when it counts the most, which obviously is what you want in a goaltender.
One other guy I wanted to ask you about, because for my money, it's his race to lose, if you will, insofar as being the highest player drafted out of the OHL this year, and that's Ethan Belchetz. The first time I met him was, I think it was game 2 of last season. So he comes into the league as the first overall pick to Windsor. I interview him before the game just for our pregame show on the broadcast, and I was blown away at how mature he sounded, how poised his answers were, etc. Then he goes out, scores 4, has 2 assists, gets into a fight, and I'm like, who is this freak right now?
Yeah.
So you had him for, I saw him one game. He was injured the next time we saw Windsor, but nonetheless, your perception of Ethan Belchetz.
Well, your perception at the start, I remember camp in July last year. Um, just the moves he was scoring goals from right in front of the net in tight, showing off the hands he has, just the extreme talent in tight that he had for a big man is obviously a little rare. So I saw that at camp, and obviously you see the rest with the frame and what he can do in terms of puck protection and just overall play. I found he took it another level in November, and then had a heck of a season after that as well. And then at Hlinka, I saw, I saw an Ethan that had a much more rounded game. He was very much an offensive threat at U17s, but he kind of brought another level to his game and added layers to it. So to me, I was really impressed with the way he played offensively and defensively. for us at the Hlinka. He was one of our best forwards with Tynan Lawrence. Those guys played together and they produced all the time. And Ethan had a few big goals for us as well. So really impressed with the kid. I think the sky's the limit in what he can do, and I'm eager to see where he'll go in the draft.
Yeah, you and me both. First round, I think, goes without saying. But I wonder if you, as a coach, play the same games that we play on the media side. And that is, you try to project a guy like, this guy, he's going to go, because we get that players to watch list. We just went through it with Central Scouting, first or second round, third or fourth, et cetera, et cetera. Do you ever play the game to see how close you get on predicting where players end up?
Um, I mean, for those guys that are so high end that they're going like really early in the draft, it's a little tricky because it kind of falls into like what the team needs are or where he connects a little better. Obviously, except the first and second overall, but when you get to like three to 10, it can kind of vary. Funny story about that is, to me, at the U18s, I loved working with everybody, whether it's Brady Martin, Cole Reshny, Braden Coots, all those guys that ended up going in the first round. But to me, the guy that was the most intriguing, just because he was a little more under the radar, but just with the plays he was making, you kind of have to rewind. So you're watching video after the game, and there's certain plays he makes that kind of go unnoticed, but you have to like rewind and say like, how the heck did he see this guy open on the breakout or on the transition or to set him up for a scoring chance? And when I was getting calls from scouts to talk about the U18 players, I'd kind of refer to that. Like, this guy is really impressive. Like, to me, I don't know what his ceiling is, but there's certain plays he made that not many people can see. And that guy was Benjamin Kindle. So I didn't think he'd go that high, but I was asked on a French podcast, the guys that do the Habs games on the radio, Danny Dubé and Martin Maguire, that have been doing it for like 20 years. They had me on their podcast to talk about the draft eligible guys, and they asked, who do you think is going to get chosen, a little sooner than he should in terms of like the final rankings? And I said, I think Benjamin Kindle will. Like I said, I didn't think he'd go that high, and I didn't think he'd already have the success he's having right now. I watched the game last night. He was on the ice there to try to tie it against the Leafs. So he's definitely having a heck of a start. But there's certain guys that they may jump a little forward, but to play around with like that 3 to 10 is a dangerous game, I think.
Great story and a great example. And you just made me think of one more thing when you talk about watching that video afterwards, rewinding it. How did he do this? How did he do that? I've been around long enough, Matthew, that getting onto the bus after a road game meant really just mindlessly watching a movie or maybe trying to catch a nap. I see these coaches now, and the laptops are out and they are already breaking down what just happened. How, as a coach, do you keep yourself sharp these days and try to stay one step ahead of that next coach?
It's by putting in the work. Um, it's putting in that work, because it seems funny to say, but there's certain things like you're behind the bench, you can't see everything obviously at once. Um, and watching that video, there are a few things that you may not see when you're behind the bench. Either you're talking to a player, or you're looking behind the play for something, or you're looking at the other bench to see who potentially the coach, what line he's going to send on, so you can make sure you match if you're on the road. So all these different things. So it's putting in the work to kind of stay ahead. It's watching a lot of hockey, NHL hockey as well, to see where the trends are, the way the game's probably going next. What you see at the next level is what we'll probably see in 4 to 5 years at the most. In my position right now, so obviously I got let go from Blainville, so I've got 1 year left on my contract. So I'm using that to kind of find ways to get better. So I'm planning a trip at the end of the month to go to Finland and Sweden to see how they run things there. So I'm going to spend a week with Rikard Grönborg, who's a Swedish coach that's coaching in the Finnish league right now, and he coached last time the NHL players were at the Olympics. He was a Team Sweden head coach. So he's got a ton of experience. So it's trying to find ways to stay ahead of the game in that way. It's just putting in the work and finding new ways. And also I like to, at least me personally, I like to study other coaches from other sports because obviously the game's not the same, but the people, like the athletes, the highly motivated athletes, are basically the same no matter what sport you're coaching, right? So there's certain things that you can take. I've taken certain principles from, Pep Guardiola, who I like to study at Manchester City, certain things, whether it's, time and space and moving that puck around on the power play and certain examples like that, how to use space, how to use time, how to use, so all these things. I find that as coaches, there's a lot of ways to get better besides just X's and O's in our sport. There's a lot of stuff we can learn from other sports as well.
I'm an amateur in this, but you just made me think that watching the Blue Jays run this year, I gained a ton of respect for John Schneider. I think as a manager, he established a culture. I know it's completely different from hockey, but I think the culture that he established helped to bring that team together, to make it as cohesive as it was, that allowed them to perform on the field.
I agree. So usually when a team, outperforms what they're supposed to, it's because, that culture is doing well, and that starts at the top usually. And what surprised me the most with the Blue Jays run, at least at the end of it, post game interviews, is how the guys almost to a team all mentioned how they just spent time together in the room after. They wanted to spend time with each other because they knew, for that group, it's the last time because there's always a few guys that move on, right? So it's just that I think the bond that they seem to have created definitely helped propel them this year, and that's the kind of stuff we're searching for as coaches. It's finding those ways to, we want to connect with the guys, but we also want the guys to get so tightly knit that they'll do anything for their teammates, right? That's kind of what we're trying to build as a culture as head coaches. So yeah, that's a great example right there with the Jays.
It's been great to get this perspective from you, Matthew. I can learn a little bit, hear some great stories along the way. So appreciate you making time for the show. And next time you're anywhere around Kitchener or you're at a game the Rangers are playing in, let's make sure we say hi in person.
Sounds good, Mike.